Good Friday morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to yet another weekly Friday edition of the Alan Fitz podcast, also known as The Chat. Good Friday morning. My name is Alan Fitz. I am the host of the program, and welcome into the show. And as always, I start off welcoming in our main three listening audiences for the program. Number one, those that do agree with what we talk about, and they spread the word, helping us out there, and we greatly appreciate it. Number two, those that do not quite agree with everything that we talk about, they do leave positive criticism, and we are grateful for that. We actually read some of your comments. And of course, last but not least, those that inspire me to continue on doing the chat. And yes, folks, we all know where these people are. It's the haters out there. They can't see the forest for the trees. And nothing you say good, it doesn't matter to these people. They're on a revenge get-back process. But guess what? We don't pay any attention to them. They're not controlling anything here, and we just keep on going with the chat. But without the haters, ladies and gentlemen, the chat just would not continue to happen. And we want to welcome you in as well on this Sunrise Friday morning here, the first Friday actually in August. Today's date, August the 7th of 2026. Folks, before I get started with this podcast, a lot of you may remember reading the AlanFitz.com page when we first started ramping up the podcast here from the great city, the Texas capital city, Panhandle here in Amarillo. And this is actually where this podcast is originating from, right here in our studios. We talked about, and we actually also put it out on our Facebook page, that if you had any story ideas out there, we wanted to hear from you. Well, of course, the haters had to get involved in it first, and we don't pay any attention because the haters can't come up with anything positive to relay to us as a suggested topic on the podcast. But I did receive several emails, and I do remember these people very well. They were from over in East Texas, a little small community known as Lufkin. It's the seat of Angelina County. I worked with these folks last year about this time, and they wanted me to give my story on the Lufkin Independent School District, and just let everybody out there know what kind of experience I had, because Lufkin ISD has got both positive and negative, and has been throughout the years. There has been stories of corruption within the school district, things of that nature. Now, I don't know anything about that. What I can tell you, though, there is some racism within the school district, and I'm going to get into that later on in the podcast. So that is the topic for today. It's my story on the Lufkin Independent School District from August and September of last year. I'm going to tell you my experience working with the Lufkin Independent School District. But before I get started, and I've had comments come to me on our Facebook page and through our email. Who is Wayne Hagland? Okay, this is the gentleman, if you had been looking at our webpage, and it actually started off, I didn't actually recognize there was a mistake. He was mistakenly put on the webpage in the beginning as Jim Hagland, but his name is actually Wayne Hagland. They're wanting to know, is he the guest speaker on the show today? No, he is not. I did reach out to him if he wanted to come on the podcast this morning with me live. He declined to do that. But why is his picture on a Lufkin Independent School District poster banner that we have on our webpage? And before I get into my story about the Lufkin Independent School District, I'm going to go ahead and tell you who Wayne Hagland is and my encounter with him prior to doing this podcast. Now, doing a little bit of research on him, he was actually born in Galveston, Texas, attended the public schools of Galveston and down in Beaumont. He does have a JD degree. He received his bachelor's degree from the University of Texas in Austin in 1974, and for the University of Texas Law School in 1975, received his Juris Doctorate degree. And then basically, because this topic has nothing to do with him, he is basically a lawyer for many schools throughout the state of Texas. He's a school lawyer, basically. And what had actually happened to actually get this started right away, I guess he caught wind. I'm assuming, and there's a man by the name of Dr. Daniel Spikes that I want to bring in to the podcast this morning. He is the assistant superintendent of the Lufkin Independent School District, and I'm assuming that he may have been out there in podcast land or social media land, whatever the case may be. Somebody may have referred this information back to him, and in turn read that we were going to have a podcast on the Lufkin Independent School District. The original banner, and this was several weeks ago, that this banner, ladies and gentlemen, showed up on the AlanFitz.com page, was talking about there was some racism at its finest, actually, going on within the Lufkin Independent School District. The individual's photo, her name was actually on the web page. Her name is April Lee. She is over the Human Resources Department within the administration of the Lufkin Independent School District. I'm going to get into all of this later on, but to kind of bag the cat, if you will, I received an email from Wayne Hagland indicating to me that legally I could not do this podcast because it would violate the rights of the school district administration. Basically, yada, yada, yada. He went on to say these were baseless claims and that he would instruct the Lufkin Independent School District, if this podcast commenced forward, to initiate a lawsuit against the Alan Fitz Podcasting. Well, I've got news for Mr. Wayne Hagland. I've also got news for the Lufkin Independent School District. First of all, this is America. You can sue whoever you want to sue. It doesn't mean you're going to win it, and in this case, it's certainly not going to mean you're going to win anything, because it's a violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which is known as freedom of speech. Okay. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a podcast of my experiences with the Lufkin Independent School District, what I went through as an employee with Lufkin ISD, what I actually encountered with other employees of the Lufkin Independent School District, and what I actually heard with my own ears while as an employee with Lufkin ISD. So as far as Wayne Hagland is concerned, I did respond to his email, and he did again decline to come on here and discuss this. He is also declining to support the Lufkin Independent School District on this matter. Apparently, from the time that it was reported to Wayne Hagland that this podcast was going to commence, until now, I guess the tables have turned and they have found out that they cannot stop the podcast. This is freedom of the press in this country, which is very, very strong. I would assume Mr. Hagland also found out that originally what was said on the banner was true. And regardless of what Wayne Hagland has to say, or the Lufkin Independent School District has to say, this is a requested podcast, and I'm going to tell my story just like I'm telling it right now. So, suck it up, Buttercup. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Yes, it's true, folks. I did go to work for Lufkin ISD last year. Left the Texas Panhandle. Was called upon by the school district. There is, and for those of you that may not know this, there is a shortage of bus drivers, school bus drivers throughout Texas. There has been a shortage for a number of years, simply because, and a lot of school districts are not going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to shoot straight with you like I always do on any podcast. And I'm going to tell you why there is a shortage of school bus drivers right here in Texas alone. And what the school districts don't tell you is why that shortage actually happens. And the school districts know this, folks, but I don't know, maybe they're bound by some legal clause or something that they can't say it, but I'm not bound by anything on this podcast except truth, accountability, and community, as my branding states. The reason that Texas school districts across this state have an issue with an ongoing shortage of school bus drivers is because people don't want to put up with these kids that ride the school buses. You know, folks, I've talked about over and over and over on previous podcasts that we live in a different generation of time. Back in my generation of time growing up, kids didn't act the way that they do at school. They didn't act the way they do on the school buses now. And they didn't even act the way they act out in the general public now. Parents, it's gotten to the point to where parents have been misled thinking that they cannot discipline their children because of all these laws that have been passed. And let me get into that right quick, and then we'll ease into this podcast with Lufkin ISD. Yes, many years ago, the laws were changed in Texas that limited the powers of the school district. They limited the powers of the parents disciplining their children. A lot of people are misled to believe that they cannot discipline their children. And folks, this is actually all of our faults. And I'm going to tell you why. We are the people that elected these people to go to Austin to represent us, and then they turned around and changed all these laws. So we only have ourselves, in reality, to blame for these changing laws. But there was a misconception when these laws were passed that basically a lot of people believed that they could not discipline their own children at home. Folks, that is not true. What is true, and under Texas law, as a parent, you have the right to discipline your child. You can discipline your child in front of law enforcement. It's okay to do that. What the law actually states is, and I'll give it to you straight up, there's a difference between to discipline a child and abusing a child, okay? But the misconception continues to run even to this date that parents cannot discipline their children. Yes, it's very still true that if you send a note to school with your child, do not discipline my child, then the school cannot administer what is known as corporal punishment. That's the swinging of the board. They can be put in detention, yada yada, this, that, and the other, but they cannot be physically struck in the method of corporal punishment. The misconception, ladies and gentlemen, is still there to this date. A lot of parents are scared to discipline their children. This is the new generation of time we live in. And this is why school districts across the state to this date still have the problem of being fully staffed statewide with school bus drivers. Nobody wants to put up with these unruly children. You know, everybody has problems of their own, and they just don't want to mount more stress on top of their problems dealing with unruly children on a school bus. Now, whether the school districts want to admit this out in public or not, that's beside the point, but it's still the truth. And this is why school bus driver shortages still persist today. And they still persist with the Lufkin Independent School District. And this is where the podcast begins on my experience with Lufkin, both positive and negative in nature. I remember driving down again to the seat of Angelina County, Lufkin, Texas. A rather large school district. Matter of fact, it's class 5A school district, according to UIL alignment back last year. I don't know what they are now. I haven't had the time to look, could care less, to be honest with you. And I got down there, and there was a man by the name of Randy Burton, who I met firsthand. He was the transportation director of the Lufkin Independent School District. Now, a little history on Mr. Burton. Mr. Burton actually resides in Jacksonville, Texas, which I believe, if memory serves me correctly, is Cherokee County. And he was, or as he said and told everybody at the transportation office, he was the transportation director for many years for the Tyler Independent School District. Come to find out, that was inaccurate information. Mr. Burton was never the transportation director in Tyler, according to any record that we can ascertain from that school district. He was a maintenance supervisor, basically, for Tyler. A very short period of time, actually. And the way that Randy Burton made his way to the Lufkin Independent School District, he had a son that actually assaulted the superintendent of the school district up there. Charges were filed. He was charged with a third-degree felony. Yada, yada, yada. A long story short, it actually affected Burton's employment. It was one of these situations, folks, I guess you could call it a conflict of interest. So, in a sit-down conversation with Mr. Burton, upon my arrival at Lufkin ISD, Randy was explaining to me that it was one of these situations he would have been better off going to another school district because, it would have kind of, in the way that Randy said it, alleviate some of the stress that was being put on the school district there in Jacksonville. Anyway, moving forward with this podcast, there were a lot of people that were in this area of the building. I would say there was probably close to 50, maybe 60 people in this room that were watching these videos. And I'm assuming that these are training videos for some people that may have never driven a school bus before. Some of those that may be getting their CDL with the P&S endorsement for the very first time. Basically, it's what I would call a refresher course. I went through it years and years ago. I don't have to do that anymore because, I am an active CDL holder, a Class A CDL holder. I do hold 4 endorsements, 2 of those which do include passenger and school bus. And I also have a valid TEA card, which is a school bus certificate card. That has to be renewed every 3 years. 8 hours, CEU credits, and all that good stuff. But anyway, I may have went in that room and sat down for maybe 5 minutes. And Randy Burton came and got me and took me into his office. I never watched another film again. I never even went back in that room. For the first couple of hours, Randy and I didn't do anything but sit around and talk about his past, talk about my past, my experience as a professional truck driver, things of that nature. And, the man, just by looking at me, knew that I was a veteran school bus driver. I've driven for a lot of school districts throughout Texas. And he felt very comfortable at that given point. So after we sat, talked, got acquainted with each other, he sent me down, and I do not remember the name of this place. It's been a year ago. A lot of things have come and gone. But it was a drug testing facility, and this is required by federal DOT regulations. Sent me down to do a urinalysis test at the drug center. Of course, it came back negative. The results came back, 2 or 3 days. And, if you remember me talking about doing a podcast earlier for the Tyler Independent School District, this is where Tyler got in trouble with the DOT, and they got fined. But, Randy did it the right way. He sent me down, and I got the urinalysis completed. Then I did my fingerprints, which is also required by federal DOT. This is to enable school districts to positively identify an individual, find out if they are actually on the Do Not Hire registry through the Texas Education Agency, just blah, 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 things of that nature. And everything came back negative. We were ready to rock and roll. And once all that was complete, I went to the administration building there on Cotton Square. I believe the address right off the top of my head was 101 Cotton Square. I met with HR, received my school badge and a lanyard to wear that over my neck to get into different parts of, and they gave you that because the district required, Lufkin ISD required you to have identification on you, official school ID, anytime you were on any school campus, regardless of whether it was a school-sponsored event or not, especially driving school buses, hauling children around, or maybe needing to go into a school. You could badge yourself in, maybe taking a child for disciplinary reporting to the principal's office or using the restroom, whatever the case may be. You still had to have Lufkin ISD official identification, which actually, folks, I still have that. I turned in the hard copy, but I still have a color copy of that badge. It was just something that I was proud to have. I've got it locked up in my safe. Have no intent to use it or anything like that. It's just a kind of a souvenir if you will. After all of that took place, then I was handed a hard copy of the route, my route, that I was supposed to learn. This was like a week before school actually started. Let me go back and correct myself, maybe a week and 2 days. So from that point, they gave me a set of keys to the school bus, in which case this was bus number, if I remember correctly, it was bus number 152. One of the newer buses that they had on the transportation lot. And this was a sharp-looking school bus. Again, one of the newer models. It would run like a scalded dog. It's smooth as air ride. Air conditioning inside of it was great. It was very, very hot last year down in Lufkin. And it would keep the kids and myself cool on the routes. But anyway, getting back, and actually I still have the copy of my route to this date. Has all the child's information, the parents' information, the parents' telephone numbers, everything. The physical address, all put back in a folder. And I began driving an empty school bus, learning that route. Drive that route, get up there one morning and drive that route as a morning pickup, and then you turn around and reverse it for the afternoon pickup, because it's basically in reverse. A lot of the routes are basically in reverse. And it took me about 3 days to learn the route to where I really didn't have to look at the copy that was handed before me. And I probably drove this route, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, probably about 15 to 20 times, back and forth on an empty school bus before school actually started. Now, once school got started, it was a little bit different ball game, because then you had kids that were actually getting on the bus, and I had early morning route. I would leave out around 5:40 in the morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't get back officially at the end of the day until 5:30 p.m. And I'm going to tell you why. We're talking 12 hours on a school bus, and I'm going to get into that here a little bit later. Would start picking up children. A lot of the kids, and I had 2 different routes that I did in the morning. I had the elementary and the junior high route that would drop off at the elementary schools and the junior high schools out on Kurth Drive. This is, I believe, if I remember correctly, that's Highway 69 or 103 or something. Would go drop them off, and then you would go pick up your high school route starting at that point. Now, with Lufkin ISD, they did not intermix or entwine, if you will, the junior high and the high school students. The high school students were never around the elementary students. They were never around the junior high students. They were separate from everything. So I basically had to learn double routes, and then double routes in reverse in the afternoons, which I caught on pretty quick. Growing up in East Texas, I had an uncle that lived in Lufkin. He was a state trooper before he died back in 1998. They lived out in the Fuller Springs area, which is just a little community just outside of south of Lufkin. And, I knew a little bit about Lufkin, and the more I did the route, the quicker I picked up on the route. Anyway, yada, 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 fast forward, got all the routes down. About a week after school commenced, they had these 2 women, and I call them 2 ladies. They were very, very nice. I do not remember their names. I do remember one of them was a Pentecostal woman because, and folks, this is truth whether you want to believe it or not, but Pentecostal women wear skirts, okay? Every day she came to work with a blue jean skirt on. And she had another woman working in the same office. These ladies were the route ladies. I don't know what their official name capacity was with the Lufkin Independent School District. I called them the route ladies. And they were constantly updating turn by turns on the routes. You had this, and I call it, it's not an iPad, but I call it an iPad. That clipped into the bus. You had to log in with your ID number, and it basically would take you turn by turn to the pickup and drop-off points. I mean, it was dead accurate. I have never seen anything like this. And this is where they would continually update. For an example, a new child would be put on a bus on your route, or a child would be taken off your bus in the afternoon, put on another bus. It was a constant changing venue with these two ladies. And I'm going to tell you, folks, these, and again, I do not remember their names, but they were the two of the nicest ladies that I met with the entire Lufkin Independent School District, okay? They constantly were updating my route. And then, and I'm going to back up just a little bit, and this is one of the reasons that I took this job with Lufkin ISD, is that Randy Burton and I discussed, while I was still actually here in Amarillo, before I got down there, that I was going to be put on what is called the extended route. And what this is, okay, so in the morning you go and you run your elementary kids, your junior high kids, you go drop all of them off. Then you go run your high school route, and you take them to Lufkin High School. From that point, you go back to we call it the bus barn. I don't know what they call it up here in Amarillo, at the transportation department, whatever the case may be. At this point, you have the chance to fuel the bus back up. You have an ID number that they give you at one of these electronic fuel dispensing areas that was inside the transportation parking lot. Again, you had an ID number, and you entered your bus mileage and your bus number. You would fuel your bus up. That would take approximately about 12 to 15 minutes, if my memory serves me correct. And then from that point, I would physically go inside the building, and they had these slotted mailboxes that was in the break room that all the bus drivers gathered in. And you would pick up, if you noticed paper in your mailbox slot, this was route updates, okay? So the two ladies, the route ladies as I like to call them, they would update your route. Anything new was highlighted in yellow. And at that given time, it would also be entered onto your electronic tablet. So you really didn't have to worry about looking at the paper driving down the road, which is actually a no-no. That's a serious distraction. And you would go from that point, walk back out to your bus and take off. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was one of three people of the entire staff at the transportation department, bus drivers wise, if you will, that did this. There were two other people that did have routes that were picking up children and dropping them off, but I had the longest route on record to this date in Lufkin ISD. I was on a school bus basically about 11 hours a day. When I would go in the building, the transportation break room, if you will, I would pull the papers from my mailbox, maybe a quick bathroom break, then I was right back out on the school bus. And what I was doing, and this went on till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, okay? We're talking from about 8:30 to 1 o'clock, constantly driving a school bus. I was picking up, and these, what I would like to call them, are disciplinary students. These students got into a little bit of problem in school, and instead of being suspended, we like to call them alternative school students. You would begin picking them up because they would go to alternative school later in the morning on a route. You had your own route to pick these kids up. I would go as far as nearly Huntington, Texas, which is roughly about, I'd say about 8 miles south of Lufkin. I didn't quite go into Huntington because there was a farm to market road that I turned on that separated the Lufkin and the Huntington Independent School District. Went way down this farm to market road to pick this student up and bring them into this alternative school center. Then you would sit there, by the time you got them there, you'd sit there probably 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes at the most. And I didn't just actually sit there. There were times I had to go into the school building, maybe use the restroom. That was the only time that I would go in. Other times I would initiate another DOT pre-trip inspection. I had a tire bat on the school bus. I would check my tires, things like that. Check my warning lights, my loading lights, my amber lights, things of that nature. And then they would begin coming out. Different students would begin coming out of the school, and then you would run them back home. These are students that had already been there earlier in the morning through another bus route. So it was a constant occurrence that went on. You were required to take a 1-hour break. You had to show it on paper. They were having problems with an electronic login with your ID badge back in these days. I think I was one of very few that when you attempted to enter your social security number on the time clock, it wouldn't register, it wouldn't identify you. So we had to continuously keep using paper. Anyway, whether you took a lunch break or not, you still had to show it. Most of the time, I would go grab a snack. I would take the bus back out, stop at one of the convenience stores, and maybe pick up a light snack. And then go back to the transportation, and they had this bus wash that you could go under. It wasn't much of anything but cold water with some very, very hard jet spray to clean off some of the dust and the dirt, mainly dust, if nothing else, on the buses. It dried pretty quick. I think it had a drying agent in it. Anyway, from that point back to the first elementary school, get there around about 2:05 that afternoon. You'd have to sit there until they got out at 3 o'clock. Of course, you were being paid for this, and I was being paid very well to work for Lufkin ISD. As a matter of fact, Monday through Thursday, I was on regular time. Thursday afternoon, in beginning around about noon on Thursday, and then all day on Friday, I was in overtime. Okay, so I was bringing home some pretty well good money working for Lufkin ISD. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, I was grossing over $5,000 a month working for as a school bus driver for Lufkin ISD. So, and yeah, they pay very well. Anyway, you'd wait for those kids to come out. Then you would go run that route. You would be running your elementary and junior high route in reverse. Then from that point, you would arrive at Lufkin High School, which they didn't get out till around about, if memory serves me correctly, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Run all of that, and then by the time you got back to the bus barn, it was about 5:30 in the evening. Of course, then they had after-school routes, which I did not participate in. It would have given me even more overtime But I needed some downtime, ladies and gentlemen. I needed to rest. 5 days a week, pulling those kind of hours, drag a man down. Or I drag a woman down, too, as a matter of fact. But anyway, all was really, really good working for Lufkin ISD. Everybody got along with everybody. They had a couple of Hispanic women just outside the dispatcher's window, and I'm not going to talk bad about them, but they were a little bit straightforward. It seemed like every time you turned around, they were calling you in there to advise you of something that you already knew about, because the route ladies had already presented it to you, and they wanted to go over it with you and tell you where it was at. It was really something. I mean, I understand they were doing their job, but it was more of a nuisance than it was anything. So, you kind of shook that off, let it roll off your shoulder, listen to what they had to say, and went on about your business. They didn't keep you in there very long, but it was a revolving process. The dispatchers didn't really bother you that much. They were friendly. They would say good morning to you. They would say good afternoon to you. They would say good night to you, things like that. But everything that I can report so far on this podcast was very, very positive. Now, I do want to say that Randy Burton was the type of supervisor, the transportation director, that Randy, he kind of reminds me of people up here in Amarillo, or certain people, that he's only available to talk to at his own convenience, okay? Other than that, there was really no issue with Randy. Randy and I got along very, very well. He was also a Class A CDL holder, a former truck driver as well. So we could relate to the stories that we talked about. Randy also told me a lot of personal things that were going on in his life. And no, ladies and gentlemen, I would dare not tell anybody that. To this date, I haven't told anybody that, and I'm not going to reveal any of that here on the podcast. Randy and I actually still do speak to each other. But we got along really, really well. As far as the other team members, the other bus drivers that were there with the school district, everybody got along great with everybody. I mean, everybody respected each other's boundaries. It was one of the most professional setups that I can honestly say I can remember working with any school district here in Texas or in Louisiana. I've actually worked for school districts in Louisiana as well. So it was a very positive experience working for the Lufkin Independent School District until the first Friday night. And this was high school football, and went into even more overtime. This is something that I would never do again, because I didn't get home till like 1:30 in the morning. Okay, and I want to share my experience with you. And this is where a lot of the negativity comes in about the Lufkin Independent School District. If memory serves me correctly, Lufkin was playing Longview. They were playing the Lobos at Lobo Stadium. The first, this was a non-district game. It was the first game of Friday night football. And I wasn't chosen. Let me not put it that way. I had talked to Randy about this prior to the season getting started. A lot of you will remember that when school first starts up, high school football starts up, within a month of the opening school day. A lot of them open, the school district, the football games start within a couple of weeks. And Randy and I had discussed that they were looking for volunteers. These are not, we call them volunteers, but they're paid, okay, ladies and gentlemen, to drive members of school up to Longview for the the game. And there's school buses that haul the football players, they haul the cheerleaders, they haul the band equipment, and things like that. And I told Randy, I said, look, let me go ahead and put me down for that. Well, of course he did. And, of course, you go as a different bus number. On the side of the buses, these had flip numbers on them. You could change them to whatever you wanted to. So we all lined up. I had to get someone, and of course, the dispatchers already did this in advance. But I had to have somebody take my afternoon route because, I couldn't drive my afternoon route and then turn around and make it to Longview in time for the football game, because Longview was like an hour and a half drive north of Lufkin. So we meet up at the high school, yada yada, this, that, and the other, get loaded up, and off to Longview we go. Now, folks, I want you to listen to me very carefully on something. In the state of Texas, I'm not talking about any other state, I'm talking about Texas itself. School buses are governed on speed depending on the type of inspection that they require. These are commercial motor vehicles, so they are not exempt from DOT inspection, even though we don't have inspections in Texas anymore. Commercial motor vehicles are still subject to DOT regulations. On a school bus that has just received a regular inspection, they are governed maximum speed in Texas at 50 miles an hour. If a school bus has a commercial DOT inspection, then they are allowed 60 miles an hour maximum speed. Now, this is federal DOT inspection, but it's state speed limit, okay? Which means a lot of you may be questioning yourself, well, can a school bus get out, let's say they're around Longview on Interstate 20, or here in Amarillo on Interstate 40, can they drive 75 miles an hour? The answer to that question, ladies and gentlemen, is no. Absolutely no. 50 regular inspection, 60 commercial inspection. And the inspection for most school buses in most school districts can find the inspection above either the driver's side, they place it close to the rear view mirror inside the bus, or a lot of them inside the loading unloading door, in the stairwell above that door. You will find it whether the bus has been commercially or just regularly inspected. In doing due diligence, I did check my bus, the inspection on that bus again. I did find that it was commercially inspected. So yes, I was restricted by law, Texas law, to a maximum speed of 60 miles an hour. I made it to Longview about 30 minutes later than the rest of the school buses. Why? Because those school buses, and I'm going to be straight up with you, they hauled ass up there to Longview. Okay? One of the things that I talked to the school district about in this matter is that if you're going to follow the law, instead of leaving 2 hours early, leave 3 hours early and obey the law. But the other school bus drivers that were in the fleet that afternoon going to Longview, they did not drive the speed limit. How I know that is because it took me approximately an hour and a half to get to Longview from Lufkin. It took those other drivers about an hour. Well, this is where the problems began when we got to Longview. The band director. I'm not going to call this guy's name out. You can look it up online. I guess he's still the band director. but he's not, his name is not even worth mentioning, okay? Because, I mean, he's just sorry as he can be, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about apologetic sorry. He's just a sorry individual that does not have any knowledge of DOT regulations. I found this out immediately because Randy and his wife came to Longview to watch the football game. Randy found me out. I don't care much of anything about watching football games at night. I was too tired. I've been driving all day. I was still on the clock, but I was resting in the bus. I was sitting in the driver's seat, and I was just resting. Randy came up. We got to talk, and he said the band director has got a problem. You're 30 minutes late. And he knew exactly what the case was, that I was following the law. Okay? And, you know, I told him, I said, well, if that's a problem, then we have another problem. And Mr. Bert is like, what's going on? I said, well, when we go back tonight after the football game, I'm going to reduce my speed down to 55 miles an hour. Because, and I explained to him, because it's at night, and I want to be safe. I want to get from point A to point B accident free. I want to get these kids back to Lufkin safely, and your visibility drops at night. And Randy did not have a problem with that, but the band director continuously kept harping over the fact, well, it's going to be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning before they get back. In my best interest, Randy Burton looked out for me. And they called up one of the mechanics to come up out of Lufkin and said, go ahead, I'm going to put somebody else on your bus. You're going to be on the clock the entire time till you get back to Lufkin. Just go ahead and drive back to Lufkin. What Randy was doing, ladies and gentlemen, is he was looking out for my best interest. And I appreciate Randy looking out for my best interest. But at the same time, he was also allowing another driver, and they did it coming back home, to drive 75 miles an hour, or whatever, how fast the bus would go getting back to Lufkin. The following Monday, Randy came up to me when my route was over and said that HR wants to talk to you about this situation of what happened in Longview. They don't know the law either. Go talk to them. And I said, I have no problem whatsoever doing that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I went to HR, and this is where I met a woman by the name of April Lee. Now, at first impression of April, she was a what I would call, she dressed nicely. She had a very nice appearance about her. But you never can judge a book by its cover. And in this situation, you surely couldn't judge it. I explained to her what the DOT regulations were as far as state regulations on the governing of the school bus speeds. I will tell you, and I'm not going to repeat exactly what she told me, word by word, verbatim. But folks, she basically said in so many words that she didn't care what the law said, that all school buses are supposed to stay up with each other. They're supposed to arrive at the stadiums together. They're supposed to leave the stadiums together. And she made a remark that some of the parents, and it became racial at that point. There were some racial remarks that were made in my presence that they'll get extremely upset because of those type of people. And when, the remark that she made, let me clarify these types of people, and I'll use it in a plural form. When you start going around and Lufkin is mixed. Okay, they have white students, they have black students, they have Hispanic students. They even have some Korean students. Maybe some, and I've noticed that there may be some other students of different races. When you start telling people things and then refer to them as these type of people, ladies and gentlemen, that's racist, okay? We are referring to April Lee again, and it was just me and April that were in her office together. She did use the N-word, referring to these type of people, that their parents, basically indicating that they're on lower income, and because of their race, they don't want to have to deal with these people because they make a mountain out of a molehill. And I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, again, this is, you can look at it any way you want to, folks. It is my word against hers. I understand that. I also told Wayne Haglin that, and I told him, you need to stay out of this. This has nothing to do with you. She can deny what she said, the N-word. I know I heard her use the N-word on at least 3 different occasions in her office. And to cut this cut and dry, because we're running out of time here on the podcast, I basically asked her to call Randy up to the transportation office. We're talking about Randy Burton again, the transportation director. Randy arrived about 15 minutes after she called him on the phone. Randy came into the office. The door was closed, and I looked at him and I said, I can't work around people like this. I'm not a racist. Referring to these people as these types of people, this is not healthy for me. It's not healthy for those around me. And I basically told April Lee where she could take this job. At that given moment, ladies and gentlemen, I turned in my badge. I handed Randy the keys to the school bus, because generally what I would do if I parked the school bus, I didn't turn it back into the dispatch, because I was in and out so quick, I just kept them in my pocket. And, folks, I'm going to tell you something as we come to an end of this podcast. I want you to remember something in everyday life. If someone says something to you and it gets under your skin, it has some kind of effect on you, before you take some type of action, and that action would be even opening your mouth to utter anything, remember 2 things. Is what you're about to do good for you? And is it good for those around you? This is 2 things that I remember in everyday life. And ladies and gentlemen, I knew at that given point that if I did not walk out of that office, I would have said something I would have regretted. And that is my story on the Lufkin Independent School District. Yes, there is internal racism that goes on in Lufkin, but a lot of it is behind closed doors, and a lot of people are going to see why, when it comes to this, being the individual that I am, I don't tolerate that. I remember growing up in my small East Texas town, I played Little League Baseball. And some of my best friends on my Little League Baseball team, and even in school that I went to school with, were a different color from me. Folks, it doesn't matter what your skin color is. What matters is how you present yourself. Racism has no part in my life. I don't have a racist bone in my body. And I'm surely not going to work for anyone, including a school district, that displays racism, whether in public are in private. I came back to Amarillo. I'm better off now than I was when I worked for the Lufkin Independent School District. And with that being said, that's my story on Lufkin ISD in East Texas. As always, you can go to allenfitts.com, that's ALLENFITTS.com, for the latest upcoming podcast on my webpage. Now, folks, do keep in mind that these dates and subjects are subject to change at any time, so keep checking the webpage for the latest information. Again, that page is allenfitts.com. You will notice we do have a news ticker on that page. We do keep everything up to date here in the 806. And my friends, until we meet again next Friday at sunrise, have a great day, a wonderful weekend. And this is Allen Fitts saying, until we meet again, bye for now.